Somerville. Selma was already on my team at this point. I was a senior, Malden High. Finally, we were up over 8 points to 0 for Somerville versus Malden. And that's when Coach Rick finally let me in. Me and a couple other benchers, we finally got to play that game. And I made some moves. I'm not gonna lie. That's one of the only pictures I have from my senior year, because it's one of the only games I was able to play.
And I also have more memories, honestly, from captain's practice in the summer. Because literally, we would mingle with the boys too. We'd all just come out at like 6 a.m. in the morning, sweat our butts off until like 8 a.m. and just like play each other like constantly.
Do a jog.
We came every day in the summer. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Got a couple wins, couple losses on this field.
I remember that game. I also got to play with Selma, and I was a senior, but like my whole time in Malden High soccer, I was on the freshman team as a freshman, and my sophomore and junior year I was on JV. So finally my senior year I was on varsity, and Selma was already on varsity because she's Miss Superstar with the goalie experience and striker experience. So it was nice to play with my sister as well.
This is a big multi-use field, honestly, with soccer and rugby and football and baseball and all that.
She got proposed to on this field too.
Yeah, I got proposed to.
Yep.
Well, I have fond memories of the Pine Banks field because my daughters both played on this field multiple times, and the parent section was always over there. And I remember, like, other parents would be sitting, but I was always standing because I was a pacer. So all these soccer fields are very valuable to me, and were very valuable to me and our family raising 2 soccer girls.
The start of my soccer journey was here at Amridge Field in Malden. Over here, I was first introduced to soccer at this field. Our uniforms at the time were green. Malden over time changed their uniforms based on age, and just, over time they changed. Then they became yellow and gold. And then the older kids wore navy blue. So yeah. When I was older, this side of the field was for the next age group. And that's where we started having yellow uniforms and gold. I was always the biggest girl on the team. It definitely didn't keep me back. I always tried to keep up with the other kids. I definitely had a good time. When I was younger and played on this side, I definitely feel like the coaches just wanted the kids to have fun and play soccer, but definitely if some kids got distracted, like I definitely did, doing cartwheels on the field during games, sometimes wouldn't even go for the ball. It was just about having fun. In Malden youth soccer and in other cities' soccer programs, they do invite kids from other cities to play. So I got to meet kids from other cities that are still my lifelong friends now, which was really cool. Definitely. Because soccer is not only a stress reliever for me, it was a social thing for me, it was athletic for me, it was fun. It taught me patience. It taught me, how to communicate. Communicating with your teammates in this kind of sport is really important. It taught me just about the sport itself. I think having a love for soccer in the city of Malden is what makes Malden youth kids bonded. Are you recording?
For me, the Super 88 in Malden is a bit like traveling to another country, or at least dipping one's toe in that experience of travel. I've traveled to many countries outside of the United States, but I've never yet been to a country in Asia. What I love about travel in general is the feeling of experiencing the unfamiliar, to suddenly be reminded that the world is a vast and endlessly interesting place. I like to cook, and I like to experiment cooking different types of cuisines that I didn't grow up with. The Italian food my mom cooked had little in common with the vegetables and sauces and spices of Asia. So many varieties of rice. Hundreds of varieties of noodles. Here in the Super 88, I am not the target customer. The labels on the food, the language of the staff, does not cater to my ease of accessibility. I like that. It widens my world and sensitizes me to what it's like to not be the dominant culture, and makes me aware of how much I'm used to being so. Generally, I don't think people notice me when I'm at the store. For most customers, it's a utilitarian shopping experience, a large grocery store where it's just a chore to get one's shopping done. But one time I was there, and I just couldn't find the sesame oil. I overcame my hesitation to ask two women, young adults, if they knew where it was located. To my surprise, they were very accommodating and quite friendly. Not only did they show me the location of the sesame oil, but they spent several minutes scouring the dozens of brands in order to find their favorite sesame oil, a Japanese brand they deemed the best. As I accepted the bottle they proudly presented, I felt a reaching across cultures, a connection, an effort made, and gladly accepted. I buy my limited array of ingredients: soy sauce, sesame oil, tofu, rice vinegar, a tentative stab of what might be the right kind of noodle, a few vegetables, vowing to ask my Chinese friends, my Vietnamese friends, how to really cook this authentically. For now, I'm just a traveler here in my home city of Malden.
Just outside Maplewood Square is the second oldest Jewish cemetery in the Commonwealth. The Hebrew Charitable Burial Ground was established in 1851 as a burial site for impoverished Jewish families who were unable to afford burial in private cemeteries. Over time, the site had been neglected, tombstones vandalized. In 2011, Barbara Tolstrup produced a video about the cemetery for Malden Square, an MATV production. The Jewish Cemetery Association of Massachusetts took note and began a campaign to rehabilitate the cemetery. It was rededicated on September 22, 2013. Remembrance is the sacred link between past and future, and between time and eternity. This cemetery is dedicated as a lasting memorial to the 1,400 Jewish souls, mostly children, who are resting in these sacred burial grounds in the Jewish tradition. It is customary to leave a small visitation stone on a monument as a way of saying, "I remember you. I will never forget you." Your memory will pass from generation to generation. Let this memorial stone be a symbolic gesture for the children resting here in unmarked graves, that they are not forgotten and that we stand as witnesses to their brief lives.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikita Lamore. In the next few minutes, I would like to invite you to take a look at my neighborhood located in the Faulkner area between Eastern Avenue and Salem Street in Malden, Massachusetts. A lot had changed over the 20 plus years I've lived in Ward 5, Precinct 1 section of Malden. The old Boston and Maine railroad tracks had become an inviting bike path, which also houses an engaging community farm. In the Northern Strand Trail, there's a community garden where every neighborhood is welcome to plant and grow all kinds of edible vegetables, exotic flowers, or their favorite plants. We even have plants that are native to Malden. The streets have also changed. New streets and sidewalks had replaced old asphalt. Bike lanes have been drawn as well. However, a lot had remained the same. Among the fixtures that have not changed is Lionel Trains, the country's largest train store. The rich and famous like Neil Young, Frank Sinatra, members of the Red Sox, members of the Patriots, and former Bruins players have shopped at Charles Row. That's according to a Malden Neighborhood View article by Liz Scorsello. The homes of some of my neighbors who have left us, such as military nurse Chapman, Mr. and Mrs. Ronnie Anderson, Phyllis Knight, Elusha, among others, remind me of a generation gone by. Conversations and interactions with those ancestors will always remain in my memory. At Salem Street are located some interesting historical sites, such as the Salem Street Cemetery that has headstones engraved with names of streets close to my neighborhood, like Faulkner Street, West Street Extension, and Wade Court. Though not in my neighborhood, a number of headstones with the surname Wade remind me of the spectacular Malden's jewel, the Wade Mount. Graves of family names well known in the city, like Cox, Rogers, Blanchard, can be seen at the Salem Street final resting place. The family home of Mr. Herbert Jackson, the first African American elected city council at large in Malden, the first 20th century black state rep in Massachusetts who served the legislature from 1950 to 1954, is located on Salem Street. Beauty salons, boutiques, restaurants owned by recent immigrants had flourished on the Salem Street section of my neighborhood. Mr. Neil Anderson, longtime council member and past president of Malden City Council, grew up in Plaistead Road at a time where the former Suffolk Square was part of the neighborhood. Whether it's the schools or the Salem Street Cemetery, the ethnic stores, the Jacksons or the Andersons family homes, my neighborhood represents the ever-changing and growing Malden. While it reflects a traditional New England city or town, one can also imagine the future of my Faulkner neighborhood. With the Chapman's home being gutted, the house next door to it in need of repair, a for sale sign on the Salem Street immigrant business section, new facades on Phyllis Knight's former home, members from some communities of color such as black professionals living Malden or the neighborhood, wealthier millennials buying up properties, absentee landlords, bike lanes and bike paths added. What does the future hold? What will Faulkner neighborhood be like in 50 years when I and other professional immigrants of my generation are no longer on this earth? Let's imagine Faulkner 50 years from now. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome. Today, we'll be taking a look specifically at the African American student to teacher ratio in the Malden Public School System. We value diversity, and we're looking forward to expanding on the subject by including a range of ethnicities and underrepresented racial groups in the near future. However, in this film, due to time constraints, we'll be highlighting the disproportionate numbers of Black teacher staffing, both in the past and up into Malden's diverse present. Multiple rigorous studies have shown the positive impact of teacher diversity on all learners, but most critically on Black students. While Black students account for 15% of all public school students in the US, Black teachers make up a meager 7% of the teacher workforce. Yet, in Malden, which, by the way, was recently identified as having the most diverse high school population in the state, Black teachers account for less than 5% of the teaching staff. Across the country, the teaching landscape looks similarly very white. Black teachers have shared with researchers just how rare it is to find other black teachers in the classroom. Additionally, African American teachers expressed how teacher education has not caught up with the overwhelming need to specifically recruit and support Black and other non-white educators within the teaching profession. Multiple studies demonstrate conclusively that getting more Black teachers in the classroom will immediately improve student trajectories. When Black students have at least one Black teacher by the time they enter third grade, they are 13% more likely to enroll in college. Having had two Black teachers, students of African descent are 32% more likely to pursue higher education. For Malden to achieve proportional parity, it must prioritize recruiting and supporting a more diverse faculty, both for learners currently attending school as well as for the students of tomorrow. Here we have Robin Mars, a member of my family and a former treasurer of Malden High's Black Student Union from 1974 to 1976. Gathered around her are the union's other members. Tell us how, at long last, finally having a Black teacher affected you.
It affected me quite a bit. When I was growing up, there weren't a lot of teachers that looked like me at all. Until I got to my sophomore year in high school, and I had Mrs. Phillips. I was 15, I believe, and it was a time when I didn't embrace my Black identity, or I hadn't embraced it, and I felt like white was the standard. And sometimes I felt like I wasn't good enough. And it wasn't easy having to keep my hair straight, for instance, and ignore derogatory comments. Mrs. Phillips treated all of us like we were a part of a family. Between 1974 and 1976, there was a lot of racial tension just throughout Massachusetts, throughout the country, because of busing, and I wasn't one for speaking out much, especially since there were a handful of Black students in my class of more than 700 people, or more than 700 students, but Mrs. Phillips was a force to be reckoned with. She showed us that there was nothing wrong with speaking our minds or speaking up, even if we weren't heard. She was our advocate for change. She helped me find my voice to the point of when I was asked to be in a debate about busing, I came forward and I handled it. In her creating the Black Student Union, Mrs. Phillips helped me, and I believe others, embrace who we were. She made me feel like I wasn't alone in the school, like I had someone who I could go to if there was a problem, or who would understand me better and would advocate for me if necessary. Having Mrs. Phillips in the school elevated my confidence, taught me discipline, and created high expectations for myself, or helped me create high expectations for myself. Just like it's important that we have dolls that look like us and books that have characters that we can relate to, I think it's really important that children have teachers that they can relate to as well, because representation matters. Children become what they see. It's been about 46 years since I graduated, God help me, from high school, and I will always remember the effect that she had on me.
Hi, what is your name, please?
My name is Amari Foster Christopher.
And where do you live?
I live in Malden.
And how do you identify racially?
Black.
Have you ever had a teacher while attending school in Malden that identified as you do?
She identifies as biracial.
Biracial. And what grade were you in?
I'm in 8th grade right now.
And what grade were you when you finally had a teacher who identified as biracial?
8th grade this year.
This year. And how would you characterize that experience?
Positive.
Thank you. And how do you feel finally having a teacher that looked like you?
Accepted. Accepted.
Accepted? That's great. Okay, good.
My name is Martinez McNeil, and I live in Kingston, Massachusetts. Elementary school, I went to the Maplewood School on Salem Street. And for high school, I went to Malden High School. I identify as an African American.
Have you ever had a teacher while attending school in Malden that identifies as you do?
Not just in Malden. I have never in my life had an African American teacher in any of my education. That's college, that's high school, elementary. Never in my life have I had a person that identified the same as me. To watch, TV now and see African American teachers or, hear of them, I'm almost like, I never had that. So to know that the issue exists, but to know that something like this will bring awareness to that. I'm sure it's something that people probably don't think of. I'm appreciative of this, although I'm no longer a student. I'm appreciative of the impact that it will have on future students, such as my children and other children growing up, that they would be able to have teachers that look like them and identify with them and understand life from their lens.
Would you share your dad's name with us?
Martinez McNeil. Same name. There was one African-American teacher in the school, and his name was Mr. Aline. And I believe he was like a civics or a U.S. history teacher. And both my dad and his older brother, my uncle, were privileged to have him in school as a teacher. And my dad just saying he remembers the first day he walked into the class and saw this African-American man with a huge afro, so the teacher's desk, dressy bell bottoms, and said he was always dressed up, always in a suit and tie, because he knew that he had to. A lot of the other teachers would dress kind of casual, but he felt that because of, his ethnicity and how he may be viewed, that he had to kind of go above and beyond to be viewed the same as other teachers, which is also sad. But it also, gives your students an example.
So would you maybe summarize that for your dad? That was a very positive experience?
Yes, extremely positive.
Yeah.
Extremely positive. Mr. Aline was actually the one who encouraged my dad to go into music full time. But he encouraged my dad to follow his dreams, and my dad ended up graduating from the conservatory, classically trained piano player, classically trained singer. He did voice lessons, he wrote plays. That was his bread and butter. And he passed that gift and all of that knowledge down to me. So there's a lot of deep gratitude there for the encounter that my dad and Mr. Aline did have, because he really made an impression in his life.
My name is Cecilia Nunez O'Doherty.
Okay, can you speak to how you are involved with the Malden Public Schools?
I was hired 12 years ago as an English language learner educator. I identify myself as a Latin African with various voices and cultures.
How do minority students react when they meet you?
I think many of them are surprised to see me. They don't really know how to analyze who I am because of how I present myself. And they're actually very impressed with the persona that I bring forward. Both my Latina-ness, my Afrocentric self, and the many dimensions of who I am, because I'm asking and I welcome all of who they are. So it's always an interesting experience with me. I recently actually have a note saying, thank you, Ms. O'Doherty, for providing that confidence in me that I didn't know that I had, And so that to me was so, to get a note from a fourth grader with those types of words, made me realize how impacting I've been to that student. But again, I always remind them that how impacting they are to me, because I have to practice the words that I'm sharing with them as well. So we're constantly in this relationship of, I'm sharing, they're sharing, and I'm, guiding them with information that's not just for now, but also to build on the self that they will be in the future. The school system is just a reflection of the community in general. of course, the more diversity there are, the more of the self you see, and the more students feel more comfortable in bringing out and sharing more of their concerns, both academically, socially, and emotionally, and they feel much more safe. And so, yes, the more diversity, the more sense of inclusion, and the more sense of community, and the sense of global acceptance as well. Because if we're talking about our students, we're talking about the global community, because that's what they're bringing into the school and into the community as a whole. And I hope we continue to build on it to make Malden not just a better place, but a better community, a better citizenship.
Dear spectator of the Mapping Malden project, the story we want to tell you began 30 years ago and over 4,000 miles away from Malden. Main characters: Anton Sviridenko, a blind and autistic baby boy who later turned into a talented young man, a musician named Santon. Parky, black Labrador Retriever. Waits Mountain Park, Malden, Massachusetts. Waits Mountain Park in our story is not just a place, but a character that plays an active role in the story. It has a soul and is dearly loved. Supporting characters: Julia and Alex, Santon's parents. Once upon a time, there was a boy and a girl, Yulia and Alyosha, who were friends for as long as they could remember themselves.
Wait, you started telling a completely different story.
You're right. We could tell another story about them, but their friendship and later love served as the beginning of the very story that we are telling here. So the boy and the girl turned into a young man and a young lady, got married, and they had a baby boy. Young parents doted on their newborn. Nothing clouded their happiness for the whole 3 months. But the time passed, and the baby did not respond to their affectionate glances and smiles with his own gaze and smile back. The parents went to local healers, the best doctors of traditional Western medicine, and received their conclusion. The child was born blind without light perception due to the underdevelopment of both optic nerves located in the brain. There were other brain malformations, the impact of which on the intellectual development of the child could not be defined at that time. The diagnosis for their son was stated as SOD plus bilateral ONH, septo-optic dysplasia plus bilateral optic nerve hypoplasia. A young couple had to make a very difficult decision, but the only right one. They had to break a word given to Alexei's mother not to leave their home country. Without proper long-term preparation, the family flew away from their home and arrived in Malden, Massachusetts, seeking a better quality of life for their baby boy that they couldn't get back at home. Julia and Alex could easily adopt their names for the new English-speaking country, but they still had to learn English and obtain an education and profession suitable for the United States.
Hello, my name is Santon. I was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. I'm totally blind from birth and later was diagnosed with autism spectrum. I moved to Malden, Massachusetts with my parents when I was 1.5 years old. I had attended Perkins School for the Blind and later went on to graduate Berklee College of Music, summa cum laude.
Sort of go in the door and have that discipline to play, because boy, if you made mistakes, you wouldn't be seen again.
After graduating Berklee College of Music, I have been playing solo and collaborating with a friend of mine named C.D. Collins, a Kentucky native who lives in Malden, Massachusetts. She's a poet, writer, and spoken word artist. I accompany singers. For the past 5 years, I have been playing piano with the Boston Tango Orchestra. I play the violin and the bandoneon and several other instruments. I also compose music. Alone or with my musical partners, I have been performing all around New England, New York, Kentucky, Colorado, and several other states, as well as in Toronto, Canada.
Well, that was the summary of the past 30 years told by Santon. As for us, his parents, the first 5 years were extremely challenging. But we were young, full of energy and optimism, and we did it. We didn't regret for a second our decision of moving from Russia to the United States. In Malden in particular, and in Massachusetts as a whole, we've met many beautiful people who helped us to raise our son and helped him to become a happy and successful young man as he is today. Our new country became our second home. Malden became our beloved hometown. It took us about 10 years before we felt pretty comfortable socially, professionally, and financially. However, while getting on our feet in our second homeland, we had to deny ourselves certain things along the way. The most serious and sad yet very reasonable decision that we had to make was not to have a second child during our early years in this country. Back then, we didn't have extra time, energy, or money, and when we could afford a second baby, it was already too late in the sense that with Santon, they would be too far apart in their age. So Santon grew up as a spoiled darling and the only child in the family. Therefore, when our good friends introduced to us Puppies Behind Bars program and offered Santon to have a puppy, black Labrador Retriever, Parky, who was a sweet, well-trained, loving girl, we gladly accepted her into our family. Parky became the only living soul that Santon had to take care of.
My dog Parky was born in 2004 in Killfish Prison, upstate New York. She was raised in the Puppies Behind Bars program. The inmates were preparing puppies for the Guiding Eye Dog School.
The PBB, or Puppies Behind Bars, is a program in New York prison. It trains inmates to raise puppies to be service dogs for the disabled. Our Parky didn't fully meet extremely high standards to enter the Guiding Eye Dog School that she was supposed to go to after she graduates from PBB. Therefore, the program donated her to Santon as a companion for a blind and autistic child.
When Parky joined my family, she was 1.5 years old. She was already trained to respond to all basic commands, such as come.
Parky, come!
Get busy when it is time to potty. Sit, wait, down, heel, to walk by my left side. I taught her some new silly tricks to do, such as bringing slippers to each family member, bringing me her leash when we were getting ready to go for a walk. My dad would place a carrot on her nose, tell her to wait, and then eat it. Parky would throw the carrot up in the air and catch it in her mouth. I often walked to the Waits Mountain Park with her. She loved to play fetch with me. My sweet Parky has been a part of our family for 14 years. She passed away in July 2020 when she was 16 years old. I dedicate the song to my dog. Parky, you are the best. I will remember you, and so do my family. Rest in peace, my beautiful black lab. This song is for you. It's called Parky's Waltz. While Parky was alive, and after she passed away, I still like to go for a walk in this park with my parents or friends. I also like to jump on the jump rope, roller skate, climb the obstacle course. And even exercise with my personal trainer, Tom Shula.
26, 27, 28, 29.
When we bought the house next to Waits Park, the first day we went for a walk in the park, and we immediately fell in love with it. At those days, this park was wild and unkempt, but it had its own charm and soul. It was pleasant to walk along it, although it was heavily littered. Later, we learned a long and interesting history, starting in the early 17th century, with the study of the first settlers of these places and the name of the man John Waite, after whom the mountain on which the park is located was named. And then until the 20th century, when the park was used as an air defense site during the World War II, and then as a summer camp for kids. When we got our dog Parky, we walk in the park almost every day. One day Parky badly cut her paw with a glass of broken bottle. Since then, we have been collecting some junk and broken glasses, but our efforts were not enough to remove all the junk, because almost every evening it was cloned. So we were thrilled when we find out what Malden had plans to renovate the park. Of course, now after the renovation the park has become much better and cleaner, although I am very sorry for loss of two huge and beautiful oaks growing near the basketball court, and a small grove of pines growing of the second tier behind the flag. Our dog died 2 years ago, but we still come and clean up the trash and glass in the park from time to time. Unfortunately, some park visitors continue to litter. It's especially strange and unpleasant to see plastic bags with dog's waste left on the side of the path. I take this opportunity to ask all visitors to the park to clean up after themselves and dogs all the garbage and throw it in the trash cans in the parking lot. It's not as difficult as it seems. Come on, people, just be kind.
Yes, please, be kind and use common sense. Or fully follow the rule. Many wild animals live in this park. Coyotes, raccoons, rabbits, squirrels, foxes, just to name a few. Nobody cleans after them, and that's okay. Animals' feces serve as organic compost for the soil. You really need to pick up after your dogs only if they poop where people, and especially children, can accidentally step in it. But if you choose to just follow the rule, do it all the way through. Otherwise, You pollute the environment because plastic bags will never decompose.
Also, I would like to share an idea. Since young people continue to burn bonfires in the park, and it seems impossible to stop them, it may be worth organizing the fireplaces.
Waits Mountain Park is a little gem in our city. It gives human visitors and their pets fresh air and shade on a hot summer day, displays amazing colors of autumn foliage and spring bloom, and winks at us with the snow sparkles on a cold winter day. We come here for a fabulous view of the Boston skyline, beautiful sunsets, and stargazing on a warm summer night. With our love and care, the park will thrive. Love and kindness are the most powerful engines. They can heal or damage. When used properly, they can turn a little piece of land into a beautiful park, turn a silly puppy into a service dog, empower a person who committed a crime to contribute to the community, help a veteran, or a person with disabilities. They can turn a handicapped baby into a strong and successful man. Thank you for being kind.
I wanted to tread slowly, unfurl our imaginations under a canopy of wisteria, the afternoon glimmering around us. I had despaired of finding that current again. Someone who inspired such courage that I could spring from a high dock in Bonaire, believing I would surely sink to the bottom, but I leaped from the dock, splashed, dipped, then bobbed, exhilarated. I'm okay. We sailed underwater, face to face with trunkfish with their movie star lips, schools of flashing blue tang. I wanted us to savor the moments, accumulating into months, decades later, settled before a fireplace, snowflakes swirling at the windows. But she wanted to live together right away, buy a house, all of it now, right this minute. I believed it cruel to bind her wings, so we bought a Philadelphia at the top of the hill on Electric Avenue. When the movers came to her house, she had not packed. I waited on the bare floors of my rooms, searching for the emerald earring she'd lost carelessly, a gift from a lover. In the new house, she tore the walls down to horsehair and lath, filled the rooms with paint, caulk, dust, and chemicals, sickening my cat, and also me. Damaged goods, she called me, drove me to late-night emergency rooms. Halloween, we danced at Campus Man Ray. I dressed as Anne Heche in a negligee the night she wandered disoriented in Fresno. Back home, she asked me, aren't you ashamed? Going out in public in a see-through gown when you're 50 years old? I ended up in the emergency room that night, too, one of my episodes. I didn't get all the way better after that Halloween. Even with the IV, Compazine, her next day's matzo ball soup. She treated me kindly after the hospital, bought me jewelry, a leather jacket, but this time I didn't snap back, had to break down and get, the pills. Moved downstairs in our Philadelphia. Every night she knocked on the door. Come on upstairs, she'd say. Come on back. She approved the neighbor's curb cut without asking me. A bulldozer excavated our hilltop property, exposing the foundation to build his driveway. A thunderclap could make your house collapse, the engineer said. Wind could cause the whole house to rack sideways. I lay in bed, afraid of wind, of thunder, of sleep. She stole that house. I couldn't fight. Just get out, my friend said. Get out and build yourself back. What was left of me so thin, the skin stripped, the myelin sheath that holds the body together, abraded on the asphalt road on which I was crawling. We built me back with tenderness and victuals. My friends fetched me home. To Malden, where the Sisters of Providence once resided, the nuns departed with all their stories. The Malden Redevelopment Authority decided to rehabilitate the building, preserving the beechwood floors and staircase, the wide windowsills and stone cross. I stood in the sunny top floor loft, the one with the stone cross. I drew out my checkbook, not knowing how I would pay for the rest of it. When I tried to get a loan, the bank officers gently showed me out. So I spent every penny. In their time, 9 nuns lived in my apartment, 1 cot for every window. I still feel them, long-suffering and kind. There are trees in the courtyard, maples, green-leaved, flaming in autumn, elegant black limbs against the sunrise in winter. 3 trees on the street, endangered, fragile, persevering. In their tiny urban plots, the tree roots tendril toward each other. The Buddhists say we have a mistaken view of life. We don't know who we are. When we were young, no one taught us how to walk. We were true to our own nature and learned ourselves. Now we embrace our mistaken identities so deeply that they become our reality. Appreciate your own life first. Appreciate when you fail. Appreciate when you embarrass yourself. A tree stays a tree no matter what. If you kick it or curse it, it is in harmony with itself. It doesn't care what you do. It's just being a tree. This is not so. I arrange oyster shells around the base of my tree. I give her water. I clean the patch of ground around her. Inside, I cook cabbage soup, as the nuns must have eaten in silence. For them, I add beef shank and marrow. For them, I add golden cream. I remember the nuns. I hear the messages of the tree outside my window. I know she cares. Of course she cares. She gives me an orange shield of flame. She reminds me of my taproot. She dresses me in boots of hunter's green.